People often confuse being good with being harmless, but those are not the same thing. In fact, they are almost opposites. Harmlessness isn't virtue, it's just the absence of power. There's no moral credit in being too weak to cause harm. That's not goodness, that's fragility. That's a rabbit hoping the fox doesn't notice it. You can't claim moral superiority because you've never hurt anyone if the truth is you couldn't hurt anyone even if you tried. True virtue, real grounded moral character emerges when you are fully capable of doing damage but you choose not to. That's strength under control. That's power with discipline. And that's the kind of person the world actually needs. Someone who can confront evil, someone who can stand up for what's right, someone who can fight when fighting is necessary, but doesn't unless the moment demands it. That's a dangerous person who's decided to be good. That's virtue. You can think about it this way. Who do you want in a crisis? Who do you want in charge when things fall apart? Not the person who's soft and agreeable and unwilling to raise their voice, not the one who avoids confrontation at all costs. You want the person who has strength, who has courage, who has the capacity to act decisively, and who has the wisdom and restraint to act only when necessary. That's the person you trust. Not the one who can't cause damage, but the one who won't unless it's in defense of something meaningful. If you don't confront and integrate the part of yourself that could be dangerous, then you're naive, you're blind to your own nature. And when the world tests you, as it inevitably will, you won't know what you're capable of, and worse, you won't be prepared. The dangers outside you demand that you have a danger within you, tamed, trained, and ready. Otherwise, you're at the mercy of those who have cultivated that power and aren't as morally restrained as you pretend to be. So it's your responsibility to become strong. Not cruel, not aggressive, but strong. Physically, mentally, emotionally. Strong enough to stand up straight when things fall down. Strong enough to face pain, loss, betrayal, humiliation, and not be destroyed. Strong enough to say no when everyone's pressuring you to say yes. Strong enough to lead when no one else will. And that strength has to be earned through discipline, through voluntary suffering, through honest confrontation with who you really are. Because only then can you be trusted. Only then can you walk into the chaos of the world and bring something like order. Only then can you protect others, stand for truth, and do it without needing to be liked, without needing permission. So no, don't be harmless, be strong, be capable, be dangerous, and choose to be good. That's what makes you reliable. That's what makes you trustworthy. That's what makes you virtuous. We live in a world that rewards usefulness, not intentions. You can have all the dreams, ideals, and compassion in the world, but if you can't translate any of that into effective action, then what good are you to anyone? A competent person, someone who can actually do things, is respected not because they say the right words or hold the right beliefs, but because they produce results. They solve problems. They move the world forward in tangible ways, and that earns trust. You don't get respect just because you mean well. Meaning well is cheap. It doesn't take effort. It doesn't require sacrifice. It doesn't demand the transformation of your character. Anyone can sit around and talk about how things should be, but the person who can take a complex task, master it, and execute it consistently, that person is invaluable. That person doesn't need to ask for respect. They command it because they paid for it in discipline, effort, and proof of ability. People want to follow someone who knows what they're doing. If your car breaks down, you don't want a philosopher with good intentions. You want a mechanic who knows how to fix engines. If your child is sick, you don't want someone who feels bad about illness. You want a doctor who understands anatomy, diagnosis, and treatment. That's competence. It's not flashy, it's not always glamorous, but it's what holds civilization together. And without it, everything collapses. Competence doesn't come easy. It requires humility, the kind that acknowledges, I don't know enough yet. It demands repetition, focus, failure, and a willingness to become a servant to the process. There are no shortcuts to mastery, but once you have it, once you've become good at something that matters, you'll find that people start looking to you, depending on you, and not because you begged for attention, but because you've become reliable. That's how you earn respect. You don't demand it. You become the kind of person whose presence adds value. You walk into a room and things get better, more organized, more structured, more efficient. That doesn't happen by accident. It happens because you've spent years getting your act together, learning, refining, building skills that others need. And that process makes you someone others should listen to, someone whose voice carries weight. Now, contrast that with someone who talks a lot but can't deliver. They want credit without competence, applause without sacrifice. That's hollow. And eventually the world sees through it, because when the pressure's on, they collapse. And people don't trust those who collapse when it counts. They trust those who show up again and again and perform. So ask yourself, what are you building? What are you learning? What are you refining in yourself that makes you more competent today than yesterday? Because the moment you become truly useful, genuinely competent, you stop being ignored. You become necessary. And there's no stronger foundation for respect than that. Harmlessness is not the same as being good. It's not even close. In fact, it's a mask for weakness. A person who is incapable of harm is not moral. They're just impotent. They have no edge, no power, no weight in the world. And when things go wrong, when violence erupts, when injustice shows its teeth, when life demands something real, harmless people disappear. They shrink because they have nothing to bring to the table except avoidance. We're told to be kind, to be soft, to be gentle. And those traits can be beautiful, but only when they are chosen by someone who has the capacity to be their opposite. If you don't have a shadow, you're not complete. If you haven't confronted the parts of you that are capable of cruelty, dominance, rage, and destruction, then you're naive, you're unfinished. And you're dangerous in the worst possible way, not because you're a threat to others, but because you're a liability to yourself and everyone who relies on you. Mastery of your darker potentials. That's where real character is forged. It's one thing to say you never lie, never betray, never lash out. It's another thing to know that you could and then choose not to. That kind of choice is where integrity lives. It means you've looked into the abyss of your own nature, and instead of pretending it isn't there, you've gone down into it, mapped it out, and built a fortress over it. It's strength, that's morality. People who are truly trustworthy are not harmless. They're dangerous, but they've got themselves under control. You don't trust a sheep to protect the flock. You trust the wolf who's decided not to feed, because he could, and that makes his restraint meaningful. There's no virtue in being unable to fight. Virtue is when you can fight but choose peace, not because you're afraid, but because you're in control. And here's the thing, life will push you. There will be betrayal, there will be loss, there will be moments where injustice hits so hard you feel like burning everything down. If you've never trained that dangerous part of yourself, if you've never integrated it, then in those moments, it'll either take over or disappear. You'll either become the thing you hate or you'll collapse under pressure. Either way, you lose. So you must build it, not recklessly, not to dominate, but to protect, to stand up, to say no when it's easier to comply, to hold your ground when the crowd turns, to face your own inner chaos and bring it into order. That is not weakness. That is moral strength. That is what makes you reliable in the storms of life. Don't aim to be harmless, aim to be powerful. Aim to be someone who can act decisively, someone whose darkness has been disciplined and turned into courage, because only then do you have character. Only then are you truly moral. Strength without restraint is dangerous. It's tyranny in its purest form, the brute force of will unchecked by conscience. It's the tyrant, the bully, the dictator, the person who knows they can impose their will and sees no reason not to. They don't hold back because they can't imagine why they should. That kind of strength is hollow, corrupted, and ultimately destructive. It crushes others, not to protect what's good, but to serve its own hunger for dominance. But the inverse is just as dangerous. Restraint without strength. That's weakness disguised as virtue. It's the person who thinks they're doing the right thing by backing down, by staying quiet, by avoiding confrontation. But in truth, they're just incapable. They don't restrain themselves because they're morally elevated. They do it because they're afraid. Afraid to act, afraid to be judged, afraid to step into the ring. And that kind of restraint isn't noble, it's impotence, it's self-deception. What matters is the balance. Power combined with principle, the ability to act forcefully and the wisdom to know when not to, that's the mark of someone who's truly dangerous in the best possible way. Someone who could dominate, could destroy, could impose, but chooses instead to serve, to protect, to stand for something higher than their own ego. That person is trustworthy. That person has earned the right to be followed. Strength is necessary because the world is brutal. It tests you, it throws chaos and cruelty in your face without warning, and in those moments, restraint without strength will fail. If you don't have the capacity to push back, to assert yourself, to defend what matters, you will be crushed. Or worse, you'll watch others be crushed while you tell yourself you're being the better person. That's not moral high ground, it's cowardice. On the other hand, if you possess raw power but never question it, never temper it, never discipline it, then you become a force of destruction. You might get your way, but you'll leave a trail of broken people and burned bridges behind you. You'll win battles and lose everything that actually matters. Because unchecked power feeds the ego until it can't see anything else. That's when strength becomes tyranny. So what's the answer? Develop both. Cultivate your strength, intellectually, emotionally, physically. Become someone who is not easily pushed around, someone who can hold the line when it counts. But don't stop there. Learn restraint. Practice it. Learn how to stay your hand, how to control your tongue, how to wait, how to pick your moment. Learn how to say no to yourself, even when you could say yes. That's where true power lives. Because when you combine strength with restraint, you become a force that can shape the world without corrupting it. You become someone others can lean on in crisis, someone whose actions carry weight, not because you always act, but because when you do, it matters. If you ignore your potential for power, you're not making a moral decision, you're making yourself vulnerable. You're stepping out of the game while others are still playing. And believe me, someone is always playing. Power doesn't vanish just because you refuse to claim it. It doesn't evaporate when you decide to be above it all. No, it moves. It shifts, and it flows directly into the hands of those who are willing to pursue it, use it, and shape the world with it, whether they're good or not. You may think you're being humble by avoiding power. You may even think you're taking the high road. But what you're really doing is leaving the door wide open for someone else to walk through. And the person who walks through might not care about justice. They might not care about truth. They might not care about anything except themselves. Then what will you do? Appeal to their conscience? Hope they choose mercy? That's a bet you'll lose because you surrendered your agency before the game even started. Power isn't inherently corrupt. That's a lie we tell ourselves to excuse our fear of responsibility. What is corrupt is the refusal to develop your strength while hoping the strong remain kind. That's not a strategy, that's a gamble. And history has shown time and again that when good people stay weak, bad people get strong, and they win. Not because they're right, but because no one stood in their way. If you want to live a life of meaning, if you want to protect the people you love, if you want to stand up for what's right when it matters, you must cultivate your capacity for power. That doesn't mean domination. That doesn't mean manipulation. It means developing the strength, skill, and courage to confront reality head on, to step into conflict when necessary, to bear the consequences of action, to not be pushed around by those who are louder, faster, or more ruthless. Because here's the truth. If you won't carry your own power, someone else will carry it for you. And they'll use it to shape your world, your choices, your future, and not in your favor. Power avoided is not power denied. It's just power transferred. And when that transfer happens, you go from being a player in the game to being a pawn on someone else's board. So face the part of you that's capable of more than you're comfortable with. Train it, discipline it, get sharp, get clear. Learn to speak when it's hard. Learn to fight when it's necessary. Learn to walk away when staying would cost your soul. That's what it means to hold power responsibly. Don't run from your strength. Don't pretend it's not there. Use it, shape it, or someone else will. And you may not like where they take you. Life is suffering. That's the fundamental truth. Not in a pessimistic, nihilistic way, but in a brutally honest way. From the moment you're born, there's pain, struggle, limitation. You get sick, you lose people, you make mistakes, you carry guilt, you watch things fall apart. That's not the exception, it's the rule. And pretending otherwise is a fast track to resentment. Because when reality shows up, and it will, you'll be too fragile to handle it. The question then isn't whether you'll carry a burden. You already are. The question is, what kind of burden will you choose to carry? Will you carry the burden of responsibility or the burden of regret? Will you take on the weight voluntarily, or will you wait for it to crush you against your will? Here's the truth. Life demands that you carry something, and the more capable you become, the more you ought to carry. The greater your strength, mentally, physically, spiritually, the more you are called to shoulder. Not because life is cruel, but because that's where meaning is found. You don't grow by escaping difficulty. You grow by walking straight into it and saying, I'll take this, I'll bear it, I'll make something out of it. And when you do that, when you voluntarily take on the heaviest load you can manage, you begin to matter, you start having real impact. People start depending on you, and rightly so. Your presence becomes a stabilizing force. You stop drifting and start anchoring. You stop avoiding the storm and start becoming the one who can navigate it. We admire those who carry weight. We admire the soldier who leads his team under fire. We admire the parent who sacrifices for their children. We admire the worker who shows up every single day, no matter how tired, and does what needs to be done. Why? Because they're bearing the load, because they've decided not to run, because their suffering has been transformed into service. This isn't about seeking martyrdom. It's not about being crushed under the weight of the world. It's about discovering that you are far stronger than you think, and that the more you bear, the more you become. And that's the paradox. The person who picks up the heaviest cross they can carry is the one who ends up standing tallest. Avoiding responsibility doesn't make life easier. It makes you smaller. It makes you anxious, weak, and bitter. But when you choose responsibility, when you pick up the load, you grow, you deepen, you become someone others can trust. Someone who makes a difference, not because they had to, but because they chose to. So look at the weight in front of you, pick it up, carry it as far as you can, and when you're strong enough, pick up even more. That's the path to purpose. That's how you impact the world, by becoming the one who carries what others can't. Nice. Becoming competent and dangerous isn't about becoming cruel or aggressive. It's about becoming someone the world can rely on when it matters most. It's about transforming yourself into the kind of person who can handle things, not just for yourself, but for others. The kind of person who can step into chaos and bring order, who can absorb pressure without crumbling, who can lead not because they want power, but because they're capable of bearing the responsibility that comes with it. You don't get to lead just because you have a title. You earn that right through competence, through years of discipline, study, and deliberate action. People don't follow the loudest voice. They follow the one who knows what to do when everything falls apart. And you only become that person by sharpening yourself into someone who is dangerous in the best possible way. Someone who has the capacity for force, for resolve, for decisiveness, and who has chosen to control it. Think of the protector, not the soft, well-meaning bystander, but the person who stands between danger and the people they love. That person is dangerous. That person is trained. That person has faced their own weaknesses and overcome them. They are not safe because they are harmless. They are safe because they have power under control. That's what makes them trustworthy. That's what makes them a protector, a builder, a leader. If you're not competent, you're dependent. And if you're not dangerous, you're disposable. That might sound harsh, but it's the truth. In a world filled with threats, both external and internal, if you haven't cultivated your ability to respond, then you are vulnerable. You'll be swept aside by those who have, or worse, you'll be used by them. And your good intentions will mean nothing in the face of their strength. So you must become the kind of person who can build, who can create something stable out of the unstable, whether that's a family, a business, a community, or just a better version of yourself. Building requires vision and execution, both. It requires the strength to say no when the world pulls you off course, and the skill to turn ideas into reality. You don't get that by being passive. You get that by becoming competent, by becoming dangerous. And then, and only then, can you lead. Not from arrogance, not from entitlement, but because people need you. They see what you've built. They see how you carry yourself. They see that you're not afraid of responsibility. And they follow, because your presence means something solid, something stable, something real. So if you want to make a difference, if you want to protect, to build, to lead, stop trying to be liked. Stop trying to be soft. Get strong, get sharp, get dangerous. Then learn to control it, because that's the only path to becoming someone who truly matters. So where does this all lead? It leads to a simple but powerful truth. You are meant to become someone formidable, someone who sees the weight of the world and doesn't turn away, someone who chooses responsibility over comfort, strength over helplessness, and discipline over chaos. Not for glory, not for pride, but because the world needs people like that. Your family needs it, your community needs it, you need it. You are not here to be harmless, you are here to be capable. Dangerous, not as a threat, but as a force of stability and purpose. When you become competent and dangerous, truly dangerous, you become someone who can protect without fear, build with vision, and lead with integrity. That is the kind of person who shapes the future. That is the kind of person who carries the burden of life and moves forward anyway. So choose that path, not because it's easy, but because it's right. Become the person others can count on when the storm hits. Become competent, become dangerous, and use that power to do something good.